Welcome back to The Place of Places, an in-depth analysis of William Saroyan's 1972 memoir, Places Where I've Done Time. Today, we contextualize Chapter 16, The Typing Class at Tech High, Fresno, 1921. As I mentioned in the previous video, so far Saroyan is sandwiching some of his darker memories between hopeful, brighter ones. Here in bright-eyed 1921, Saroyan is making his case to the school district that he should be allowed to leave Longfellow Junior High and enroll at Tech High. His internal reasoning was that at Tech High he would learn typing that would allow him to get his thoughts on paper faster, so that he could become a writer faster. At that time, typewriters were not in every home, and writers would sometimes hire a typist to transcribe their work into something ready for submission. This could be an expensive and time-consuming endeavor. So even at age 13, this was the practical, business-savvy Saroyan making decisions that would benefit him in the long term, a characteristic we have come to expect from him in his childhood. William was lucky because Tech High opened in 1921, when Fresno High moved to a new campus. Tech High occupied the old Fresno High building, built in 1896 at Stanislaus and O Streets, and remained there until 1950. For a couple of years, it shared this building with Fresno Junior College. It was there that Saroyan learned touch typing and the Gregg Shorthand technique. The Gregg Shorthand technique was one of the most popular offered and was meant for office workers mostly. Saroyan tells us in Here Comes, There Goes, You Know Who, that he never actually used shorthand as a writer, though he considered it, having heard that Dickens had. At this time in his life, he was heavily influenced by all things Dickens. This chapter has broader historical value because Saroyan describes the classroom itself, with 36 desks and typewriters that had their keys blacked out so that students could learn touch typing. This meant that they had to type blindly, from memory of the keyboard, so that they could type with speed and precision without looking down at the keyboard. He tells us that this course was designed for office workers to get better wages and better work, not for writers. When the lady at the school transfer office asked him why he wanted to transfer, he lied and said he wanted to learn to type to get a job, intuiting that becoming a writer wouldn't be a convincing reason to take a typing class. We also get some insight into that fiery personality of his, as he has to restrain his anger when questioned by this woman. He says, "Governments are kept cluttered with unfinished business by the millions of clerks they must hire, and this is the only way for governments to stay in business." Certainly, this disdain for government will pop up many times in his life, including with the military and the IRS. And it subsequently gave him a growing FBI dossier once he was famous. His time at Tech High was brief, and 2 months after starting, he was proficient in typing. This was followed by a short stint at Fresno High. He dropped out of school at 15 and worked on his uncle's vineyard. At 17, he was ready to leave Fresno. This chapter highlights the technical aptitude that Saroyan had for his craft. Because his stories are often short and written with speed, and because he didn't get bogged down by editing, many people think that Saroyan had an off-the-cuff, light narrative take on writing. But in his various memoirs, we learn that he carefully crafted his sentences, purposely using simple word choice to convey universal truths, culminating in the style we know today as Saroyan-esque. In fact, style is something he was always concerned about studying in himself and others, and which in part led him to New York and Paris. Nona Balakian describes his writing style thusly: "In words that are plain yet resonant, he would hit his target precisely and memorably, while at the same time deflating what was too easily accepted as true." In The Bicycle Rider in Beverly Hills, from 1952, he tells us that he learned style, timing, speed, grace, purpose, value, form, integrity, health, humor, music, breathing, and the relationship between the beginning and the end, all from riding his bike when he was a kid. He often refers to the keeping of rhythm and how music and sound influenced his writing greatly. It wouldn't be too large a leap to guess that the sound of the typewriter clacking away with its own rhythm actually helped him to create a sort of feedback loop from his brain to his fingers to his ears and back around. In this chapter, he writes, "If I thought a word, my fingers typed it. If I thought a sentence, my fingers typed the sentence. If I had in mind a whole paragraph, my fingers kept right up with my thinking. That was one of the big achievements of my early life in Fresno, and I loved the breakthrough and the skill that came with it." Even though Saroyan isn't yet a writer when he's 13, he knows that it's the job for him. His ambition is epic, and he puts himself on a path to success by removing the barrier of longhand writing and transcription. Though he was an idealist and a dreamer, he wasn't naive. This chapter is significant to show his sense of purpose. He wanted something and he fought for it, and it gave him a new skill that would lead to the ultimate goal of freedom, excellence, and self-determination. There were many points in his adult life where he lost these again, but they were always the beacon that he chased. He tells us that what he always wanted was to be entire and whole, that he wanted success so deeply that it led to anxiety. Again, from The Bicycle Rider in Beverly Hills, he writes, "I wanted to be whole, powerful, indestructible, efficient, effective, able. I wanted to be able to do one or another of the finest things any human being might do. I wanted to be able to do this thing as no one else had ever done it, which is to say, I wanted to do it in precisely my own way, out of my own accident and miracle of mortality." From within himself, he pulled a model of how to be, claiming that he had no external models of his own. He also tells us that this possibly came from a sense of insecurity or of feeling unloved. We see over and over again in his writing references to his time in the orphanage and how incredibly painful, influential, and damaging that was. And yet from that experience he drew a compulsion to overcome weakness and to be the superior of all around him. His motivation to become a great writer came as much from insecurity as from passion. So here at Tech High, we see his machinations starting, the ones that, coupled with extensive reading at the public library, led to his prolific and successful career. He ends this chapter with a one-sentence paragraph. "Nothing could stop me now." Let's put this on the Saroyan map and move on.